Hey, I'm excited to sit down. I've got Dan here. This is Dan from Dan Bowie from Ignite Heating and Air Conditioning. My name is Taylor. This is Hack and Company at Remax River City, and I'm excited. I always love getting together with other entrepreneurs. And you, this year or this time of year, Dan, it's got to be a lot about furnaces. Right? Like right now at the time that we're shooting this, it's January, and I imagine that's the calls you're getting is we're a little cold right now.
I'm everybody's best friend this time of year, right? I'm everybody's speed dial. Got to call Dan because I'm having a furnace problem.
Oh, totally, right?
Yeah.
I like how it's interesting when we see friends of ours approach us, like the messages that come through at the time that they need us. And it's neat to see how you develop relationships with people when you're part of such an important solution, right? Like everybody has a furnace in their house where we live. You need one. Like it's definitely the primary type of heating around here, especially for single family residences. And this time of year, you have to get a few of those calls for like no heat situations. Hey?
Yeah, we have 24-hour service calls. So it doesn't matter if it's Christmas Day or Thanksgiving morning or just a regular Tuesday night. We have guys on call all the time so that if you come home and you have no heat, we can do our best to get you heat that night.
Oh, that's really interesting. So kind of take us through it maybe. Let's say that, like, how does this happen to a lot of people? Are you finding that you're hearing the experience that people are waking up in the middle of the night? Do they figure it out first thing in the morning? When do most people notice that they're not having any heat?
It's usually first thing in the morning because a lot of people will have like a programmable thermostat. And so in the evening, the house might feel cool, but then they wake up in the morning and now it's really cool. And so now it's like, okay, why is it so cold in here? They run down to the thermostat, they crank it up to 30 and it's not getting any warmer. So either that or right after work.
Yeah, right at that moment where you push the thermostat and you kind of wait and you wait and you wait, and then there's no sound, right? Yeah. There's no sound of the furnace kicking on. So let's kind of move through maybe a scenario here. So it gets pretty cold, like sometimes we see -30, -40, and it's starting to move towards that cold snap. But you were saying to me at one point that it's not really just being cold that really tests this mechanical, right? It's like the change.
It's probably the running more often that shows the problem that's already there. So you could have a problem, but maybe it's like 0 outside. And so your furnace might only run once a day. And so, but once we get to -30, it's running how many times a day and for how long? Because it's trying to keep up to that heating demand. So a lot of these problems might already be there, but they just present themselves once it starts overworking.
Oh yeah, that's good perspective. Is there anything that you would be kind of seeing as a precursor? Is there something that somebody would experience that would give them note on this before they're in that situation where it's like, man, it's really cold. How fast is it going to cool down in here?
Yeah, probably the precursor is there's some bumps, squeaks, things like that with like a furnace motor or burning smell in your house that usually will come up. A lot of people call and say, I can't hear my furnace working, but I have a burning smell in the house. And that's typically like a furnace motor burning out, right? So if you hear an odd sound in the furnace, even if it's just for a few seconds starting up, it might be worth it to have a service call just to check it out and see what that noise is coming from.
So you could simulate that too. Like maybe when you get home a little bit later, you go and bump your thermostat up a little bit and then just head down to your mechanical room, like past the Christmas decorations, unless you're one of those folks who still has them up, and and listen. Because this stuff, like sometimes in home inspections, we've seen things that whine sometimes, or they just sound like, hey, I didn't really hear that before.
Yeah, exactly. In our furnace room, we have a second fridge down there to store all the pops and other extra food. So when I go down there, I can hear that furnace running because it's right beside. But it is something to think about if you've been gone, even if you're out of town for a night or two, and you get home, just walk by the furnace, especially on startup, because that's usually when you hear the noise. And even if you have the slightest concern that there is something wrong, just stand there for 10 minutes while the furnace starts up, get somebody to turn that thermostat on, and just stand there for 10 minutes and see if you hear anything.
Okay, so now let's say that you go through those steps and you don't hear anything. What are the next few things that you, so first off, let's start with what shouldn't you do at that point that you hear now and again?
What shouldn't you do? Probably touch anything. A lot of people then will open up that furnace and start moving wires around, or just trying to find a problem yourself. It's probably best just to not touch it. Best case for us when we get that call, it's kind of like when you bring a car to a mechanic and you say, "Oh, I'm having this squeaking noise," and the mechanic takes it for a ride and it's perfectly quiet, right? So a lot of times, like if you turn the power off to the furnace, it's going to erase an error code. It's going to reset that furnace. So then we get there, now we can't see the error code, and now we can't see it not working. Because if it's working, I'm not just going to sell you a part because I think it might be that. We want to know that there's a problem before we do any changes.
And we really appreciate that insight with everybody that we call a trusted expert, is that you're there to help somebody solve a problem, not to really help yourself to them, which is how some homeowners feel. Like, I would feel pretty vulnerable if you're the guy who can make the heat happen again. However you do that magic, I'm probably in. And that's not how I would feel the next day. The next day, if I happen to run into somebody else and mention this happened, and they're like, no, you just got to jog that breaker a couple times. So what you're saying is, if it's not performing and you do go and change the power on and off, you might erase the error code, which would make it harder for an expert to determine the problem.
Yeah. Any modern furnace, so you could probably say from like the late 80s and early 90s, has a control board on it. And probably 90% of those control boards have an error code light. And so when you're looking at your furnace, the bottom panel will have a little sight glass in there, little window to see inside. And there's a either red, yellow, or green, some color light that'll be blinking. And what that is every furnace has a different blinking code. And so let's say it's flashing 4 times. So it flashes 4 times and stops and flashes 4 again. As soon as you turn power off to that furnace, now that error code's gone, and you turn power back on, and the error code doesn't show up. So when we get there, unless you counted those flashes before, we can't tell what the problem was until it happens again.
Hey, would you be okay if, let's say that you had somebody that was like, man, I really feel obligated to try to get this thing going, right? Like I'm worried with how cold it is. We got a baby at home or whatnot. Would it be possible for them to go down there? Like, normally when you're in that room, you got your phone out anyway, you're using the flashlight. So could they get a clear video of that? Like, how many seconds do you need to see that light blink in order to know what's taking place?
You probably only need 30 seconds, because sometimes the furnace will be blinking, but it's actually showing that it's just calling for heat, right? But usually you'll see a pattern. So most furnaces it'll blink anywhere from 1 to 9 times, and it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 and pause, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just want about 30 seconds to watch and see if you can see a pattern. If you see a pattern, and then that means it's probably an error code. Just write that number down. And there is probably a few things that we could do over the phone, or you could try first before you call us.
Oh, that's neat. So basically, you could go down to the furnace, take a look at that, probably catch it on video just so you can effectively communicate it, or be sure you counted the dots right. And when you say a pattern, once you see a few pauses and you can be like, oh, it's like 1, 2, 3, blank, blank, 1, 2, 3, blank, blank. Those things will help you communicate that effectively. So if you were somebody who's super kind of internet handy, you could hop on, maybe find the brand of your furnace, and it will have like some error code information.
Yep. And you don't even need to go online. Every furnace, unless somebody took it off, will have a list of air codes somewhere in that furnace. Typically it's on the inside door. So you take the top door off, it's usually on the inside, and it'll tell you what those air codes mean. And so then when you're having an issue and you call us and say, oh, I'm getting a 4 air code on a furnace, I can say, oh, I know that's a limit switch. Maybe you should check your filter, something like that.
Wow, so that's interesting. So now I want to recap here to make sure that we're not sending a message that's confusing. So if I notice that there's no heat, I'm going to bump the thermostat, and then walk down there and see if the furnace is kicking on or if it's making weird noises. My second move is I'm going to go to that sight glass, and if I have my phone with me, I'm going to record the sequence of lights in the side, because I'm not an expert. I don't know if it said 7. I don't know if that weird pause was an extra one. And so in that case, I'm going to record it. And then if I'm somebody who feels as though I would be able to look for things and not at things. So if you open up a furnace and you're like, okay, I hope it speaks to me, like if I see any burning, then don't open it. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you are somebody who's like, yeah, I change my own brakes and stuff like that, then maybe you open the furnace just to find that error code map. That little legend is going to tell you. And at that point, you can ring into the emergency service line and say, hey, listen, I've got this code. And Dan, at that point, if we have a great client group, we have such a fantastic audience. Would we be telling our clients how to be your ideal client?
Yeah. See, running through that process, like you just broke down, which was great. I'm going to have to go and write that down and use it for some of our marketing things, but
we got it recorded. And I really appreciate how you take care of our clients. So I'm glad to help.
So let's be serious. Like, let's be real here. I'm all for saving money. I don't like sending out big bills. I don't want to send anybody a big bill. I don't want to get my own big bill either. So if you're somebody that's a little bit handy and you can do a little bit more than the average person, then I'm for it. And we can give you some of those tips over the phone on things to look for before we come out. Because if I can save you that service call that's, in the middle of the night and it's the extra charges, we're going to help you try and do that.
Totally. And that's how we feel too. We're here to start relationships. Like at the time where it's important for us to work together, we want to have a relationship, because that makes it go so much easier. And if we were constantly just saying, no, we're looking for transactions, we would be looking past relationships. So I love the way that you phrase that. And that's exactly who I want to call, right? Like it sounds like I always like it when, the client feels like your favorite cousin. Like I have cousins I treat better than my siblings. Like, sorry, but that's just how it goes. They're awesome. And if I had a cousin that was awesome at doing furnaces, they would probably treat me like this. Like, hey, listen, I know you well enough to know that you should leave the cover on the furnace and wait until I get there. That's what they would tell me, right? Sure. and that's fair. I know. I'm going to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
So now when we're taking a look overall at furnaces as far as mechanical systems, we always see things change. If you were talking to your favorite cousin and maybe they were going to somewhere like a home builder, what would you want them to know about this very important aspect of mechanics?
That's a really good question, because we have a big part of our business is going to new houses after the fact to try and help get that house to be more comfortable. So if you're building a house, you're probably investing a lot of money, and it's really frustrating to get to a house and then you go and sit down on the couch in the basement and you're freezing cold. So the biggest things that I would look for or to ask before is to ask about the mechanical upgrades. Because once you build that house, your mechanical is covered up by drywall. If you have a 2-story house, all your ductwork's running up through the wall, and you can't access that again unless you're doing a major renovation on your main floor where you can do things like that. So I get into a lot of situations on new houses that we're building where somebody is, something's come up, they have to save money on the budget. Well, let's cut out some of that HVAC cost or some of that plumbing cost in order to get a nicer countertop, right? So if it's me building a house, I spend the money on the mechanical, I put in the nice countertops, maybe not the best ones, because chances are in 10 years, 15 years, you're probably changing out those countertops where your mechanical is in there for the lifetime of the house.
And this is something that I kind of want to dig into here, because there's a lot of different types of furnaces. We're hearing a lot of things about, with the global economy, about how do we make sure more dollars that we spend end up in the pockets of Canadians. What do you recommend when it comes to equipment?
So we sell the Napoleon brand, and
nice. I have a Napoleon barbecue. I love that thing.
Yeah, that's the most typical responses. I say we sell Napoleon. Say, hey, I got a Napoleon barbecue and I love it. And it's that kind of sets the bar, because there's nobody out there that has a cheap Napoleon barbecue, right? It's not one, right? It's not one from Home Depot that they're replacing every 5 years. It's something that they've had around for a long time. It's a high quality name. And that's what, when they first came here and approached us about selling their product, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, I have a Napoleon fireplace in my house. And so that's a good start when you already have a positive feeling about that name. So Napoleon has expanded from the fireplaces where they started. Then they started the barbecue division, and now they have an HVAC division. All of it's based in Barrie, Ontario. And so everything is made in Barrie, Ontario, and shipped out to wherever it needs to go. It's just, that's the most local, like shop local thing that you could get in the furnace industry. There's nothing else that's even that close to Canada, which is crazy because Canada's cold. You think that we would have a little more heating products or focus here on testing that equipment in Canada.
That's so interesting to me, because I've had that same experience in the car industry where companies like Toyota, people are begging and pleading for them to put heated seats into a 4Runner. And they're like, what are you talking about? You guys up there that are like the size of Florida? Yeah, you just hang on. We're selling down here to like 10 times that marketplace, and they don't need those. And so we see sometimes that outside look, but the things that I've appreciated about Napoleon was some of those quality aspects. Like when you take a look at them component for component against other options, you're right. You get what you pay for, and these things are pretty awesome. So it's got to be cool working with a brand that you trust. Exactly.
And Napoleon even took it one step farther. So when we started selling their products, about 6 or 7 years ago now, they came here and they did a big sales presentation, and the lead engineer that started this furnace and designed it, he was the one giving us that presentation. And so we tried out a few furnaces that year. We had lots of success with them, and he came back the next year and was offering a training course just to go over the furnace. And while we were at that training course, he asked us, when you guys are installing, like, is there anything that's giving you guys a headache trying to put these furnaces in? And we never thought anything of it, but we're like, oh yeah, the way that this drain ties in is really hard to get at, and the way that we do this wiring is really hard to get at, or I had to clean a flame sensor, that was hard to get at, something like that. And sure enough, next time we get a furnace, there's a change in the manual, and they've changed something on that furnace to make our lives easier. And and to me that just blew me away, because wait a minute, this huge company is listening to the things that I care about to make my life easier. And you don't get that service from any other furnace manufacturer. I know that because I deal with every other furnace manufacturer on service calls, and that's so different from what you get from anyone else. So that's
crazy. I didn't know I knew like a furnace guy who had like an Air Jordan. you have like the Bowie drain. Like you've improved a furnace. I bet you there's technicians out there all over the place that that appreciate that change.
Well, I think it wasn't just me. I would like my complaints to be heard like that, but they talk to everybody and they really listen and they care, because ultimately they want you to have that furnace in your house as long as possible, and they want you to be happy, because now that you've had a Napoleon furnace, maybe you're going to buy a Napoleon barbecue, and they're trying to make this experience. So if they make my life easier to get that furnace in or to service that furnace, you're going to be a happier customer on the end, and we're all going to win.
But I love that working with the better options out there, like there are a lot of people that are competing for that lower dollar, and instead saying like, listen, let's just all acknowledge that you get what you pay for. Let's just acknowledge that there's going to be like a value point that's acceptable. And I think that company does hit that mark really well. The other thing that I've noticed is the options keep getting better with furnaces. Like some of the stuff that, again, we've seen in cars, like climate control, getting different zones in your house. Do you see anything coming down the pipe that you're excited about?
So coming down the pipe, I know, so they have a big research and development team, and we get a few updates from them on things that they're working on. I know they have a modulating furnace that will be like 99% efficient, but I know that they're just not quite happy with it, so they haven't put it out to market yet. But the things that you can buy right now, and something that the question's being asked a lot because of we're in a world pandemic right now, is air quality. And Napoleon has invested a lot of dollars into how can we put a furnace into someone's house and have cleaner air at the same time. So their top of the line, the 9700 series ultimate furnace, has a built-in UV air purifier. It comes right in the furnace, it's right inside the plenum, and every time that your furnace motor runs, that UV air purifier is on, and it kills any sort of bacteria that's floating around in your air. So
that's super cool. They were talking about that a lot during this pandemic, was saying that if we had buildings that were set up to be that type of like that healthy, that this would have been a great preventative measure.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And it's not, you can add these on to any furnace. You don't need a Napoleon furnace to get it. They make these lights that fit outside of their furnace, but just cleaner air. You spend a lot of time at home, especially right now when a lot of people are working from home. I'm pretty sure you're at home right now. I'm at home right now, right? And so why wouldn't you want that air to be purified, basically, as you're spending all your time sleeping, eating, everything there?
Totally. And that's something that I was also wondering, are you recommending any increased maintenance given the fact that now our houses are also our offices and our schools?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have us come over, do a furnace inspection, ask some questions about a UV light or extra filter. Maybe you want to look at a higher MERV rating filter than a typical one that you buy at Home Depot. There's lots of things that we can do. Humidifiers are big things right now. That'll provide a lot of comfort in someone's house too. So there's a lot of questions that we can talk about when we're there doing an inspection. Or
that's fantastic. So I want to give a little bit of a sneak tip here, because all of our trusted experts, I always talk to them about like how our audience is always looking to be better organized, do better deliverables to their kids. Like I know Dan's a girl dad like I am, right? You got 2 little girls at home?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you just wait till you get to this haircut, fella. It's coming.
I'm well on the way, that's for sure.
And so in helping those people that are proactive and are looking to make sure that everything is well maintained, I know when you go to a mechanic, they hate it when you want to choose that duct tape and bubblegum solution. They would like better maintenance. They think that, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And am I right to say that the right time to call an HVAC company if you were looking at air conditioning, if you were looking at maintenance of your furnace, in order to probably get really good value, it'd be like March.
Yeah, March would be a great time. So now your furnace has been run through the paces. You're coming up to a new season, which should red flag in your mind, changing your filter. And, now that furnace has been working really hard, might be a good time, because now some of those problems might start coming out. But since it's not running anymore, and you're about to go into summer, you're not going to notice it until you get to fall, which would be the second best time to get your furnace inspected. But
but lots of people are calling in the fall, right? Like getting those convenient appointments, getting the good deals out there. Like really, I want more people to understand that by the time we get to May, Dan is running. Dan is running for air conditioners left, right, and center. And now with everybody thinking that they might be home more this year, I think that more people should understand that if air conditioning is on your list, and ladies out there, if you run your houses like my wife runs our house, then I'm like elbows to the ribs is like what's going to happen next, right? Honey, they said it's time. So we want to cue you up because we want your fellas that you motivate so nicely to realize the value in this, and to make sure that they get out in front of these things so that it's a better experience overall, and get that furnace checked in March. There's less finger crossing in October and November.
You're come fall time, kids are going back to school, or you're going back to work because you probably had some summer vacation, and you don't want to think about scheduling another appointment in your house. So let's get it done after it's worked hard, and we'll fix any problems before you get there. And while we're there servicing the furnace, we can give you a free quote on the air conditioning install too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and letting us talk to you a little bit about those no heat situations, making sure that more people are able to navigate that freely. I also love how well you take care of the clients, because often when somebody's calling us about furnaces, it's not like a when you get around to it thing. It's a now thing. And so we really appreciate you being available to clients for that. Everybody can find you at Ignite Heating and Air Conditioning. This is Dan Bowie of Ignite Heating and Air Conditioning. Is there anything else that you would want to add before we break?
Well, if we're talking about getting a furnace inspection, I feel like this is a really important thing to do. So I think that we should start a sale right now. And so if you book a furnace inspection with us, we'll give you 4 free 1-inch filters. Or if you already have the upgraded filter, we'll give you a free filter with the furnace inspection.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. This is our trusted expert setting up, basically dropping the mic with saying, hey, we have a sale for you. So there's going to get some bonus filters when they come in and have that service inspection. And you know what? It's been really good weather recently. When the temperature changes, we know that these mechanical items get more stress. So this would be a great way to grab a filter, because we all know you need to change your filter. Like finish watching this video, head directly downstairs. If you keep the filters to the right, then I don't know why you haven't changed them in like 9 or 10 months. But hit that up. And also pet owners, you got to do that at double time. You got to do that at double speed, right?
Yeah.
So call Ignite Heating and Air Conditioning and get them to come by, bring those filters with them, give you that great value, and get that furnace checked out.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Cheers.
Cheers.